Hello and good afternoon, Xbox Nation. Welcome to this week's new episode of the Xbox Factor podcast. I'm your host, Mr. BoomStick XL, and as you can see, folks, we are down quite a few panel members who are expected to be here that potentially are running a little behind. But we have an incredible show for you, folks. We have breaking news that happened yesterday. The New York Times dropped a bombshell article regarding the ABK deal that has been a hot button topic for Xbox, for PlayStation, and pretty much for the gaming industry since it was announced in January of this year. The more that we hear about this, the more it seems like the only one complaining is PlayStation. We've heard more information about Jim Ryan traveling here, there, and everywhere trying to get this deal blocked. And then, of course, we're going to be talking about the confirmed 10-year contract that was sent on November 11th from Microsoft and obviously Phil Spencer, head of Microsoft Gaming, to Jim Ryan of PlayStation. And as of this recording, folks, there has been no response from Sony. And I have two thoughts and theories about that, but we have to get into the introductions. Hopefully, we can get a few more people in here to help talk about this. Well, first of all, I want to welcome to the panel officially Justin saying, brother, good morning, good afternoon, how the heck are you, and welcome to the Xbox Factor podcast.
Oh, I'm doing amazing this morning. Thank you, Boom. With it being the holiday weekend, I just want to remind people there are great sales. You got the Series X is actually $100 off right now, so selling $400, same price as the digital PlayStation. You're looking at on the Instagram page, it was $100 off this morning. It was live. And at Target, if you're a college student, they're also offering another $100 off at Target there. So a couple places to get some really good sales, and you get out there and do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're gonna be talking about Black Friday sales this particular Friday because instead of taking off, folks, I'm gonna have an all-star panel. We're gonna have a very special topic that we do on this particular podcast because you know what? Gaming is important. That's what you're here to listen to and talk about. But so is real life. And I'm going to somehow work a new topic into the conversation, which I think is going to be really fun, as well as the hot button news. I'll be making the announcement on who will be joining us on Friday. It's going to be a lot of people. I cannot wait. Obviously, Thanksgiving is Thursday here in the U.S., and if you celebrate it, we want to wish you in advance a very happy and plentiful Thanksgiving. And Boxenberger, welcome back after a month hiatus. Finally, you get a chance to hang out with us today. How you doing?
Doing fantastic. I'm super excited to be back. I'm sorry it took me so long. Man, 4 weeks. I think I've never took a break that long from the Xbox Factor podcast. So, yeah, man, I'm super excited to be back. We have some awesome topics to talk about. And yeah, so let's just get to it.
Yeah, you know what? Let's get right into it. Okay, so obviously yesterday it was reported by pretty much everyone, including the New York Times, where the original report came, that Xbox has offered PlayStation a 10-year deal for Call of Duty. And according to the report here that I have in front of me by Jez Corden of Windows Central, the titled article is Xbox offered PlayStation a 10-year deal for Call of Duty. Sony has declined to comment. And basically, the subheader is Microsoft tried to sweeten the deal, but Sony still doesn't want it. Now, he does have some bullet points here. And again, I don't think there's anyone here or eventually going to be listening to the show that doesn't know about this deal. But I think it's important for context. And the bullet points that Jez Corden has and it's simply titled What You Need to Know. Microsoft is trying to purchase Activision Blizzard for $69 billion. Sony is a huge opponent of the deal, traveling to regulators to speak out against the proposals, often using Call of Duty as a bargaining chip. Microsoft has said it offered Sony a 10-year deal for Call of Duty, up from the previous 3-year deal that was announced a couple of months ago. And as of this show, Sony has declined to comment. Now, look, at the end of the day, folks, this is something that until it's done, we're going to continue to talk about it. Whether it's just the three of us, we get some more people in here, this is a conversation that must continue, and we're going to cover it here on every turn. Now, again, I've been called out by several people in the community that says that they're not happy with the coverage, and I say, listen, I don't want to lose a sub, but if you're not happy with what I'm doing, there are millions of other podcasts you can subscribe to and listen to at your earliest and best convenience. Because, listen, this podcasting business, anyone will tell you that does it, it's a lot of work. It doesn't fall into my lap. Research must be done. Stories must be written and read. I know there's a lot of people that think that this thing is on, you just press play and it goes. That's not the way it works. So if by some chance Double Barrel Gaming isn't quote unquote blowing up your skirt, well, there are plenty of other podcasts that could help you with that, and I can funnel you to those, because there's a lot of talent on and in YouTube. But I want to go first to Boxenberger. Now, Boxenberger, we were having an absolutely astounding conversation on the back end, and I kind of want you to reiterate maybe something that we haven't actually talked about before, and that is some of the back end concerns that both the EU and the Commission, the EU Commission and the CMA actually have for this deal. And I've said this to Justin before, the biggest problem I think with gamers on one side or the other is that we occasionally only look through the peek hole instead of opening the door and seeing the wider picture. First of all, before we get into your opinions on the deal, what are your opinions specifically on the 10-year deal that has been offered?
Oh, yeah. That was an interesting one. That was a really interesting one. I mean, we know, and boom, we've talked about this basically since they announced it. This deal is not really about console gaming, aka Call of Duty. I know everyone likes to talk about this, but for Microsoft, this is about mobile. They want to grow their mobile part. So when they offer PlayStation a 10-year exclusivity deal, exclusivity deal, a 10-year deal where they will release the game on PlayStation, where they will release Call of Duty on PlayStation, they would have probably done it anyway. Call of Duty is, we know that. We've talked about it so many times. We've heard it from Microsoft so many times. It's way too big. It wouldn't make sense from a business standpoint. But it doesn't also make a sense from a business standpoint to grant them a forever deal. These deals don't happen. After 10 years, you can renegotiate. I mean, I personally thought even the 3-year deal was already quite generous, that they said, hey, after the existing deal, we will give you another 3 years for granted. And then we renegotiate. They didn't say, we're going to take it away. We just renegotiate. What does it mean that Call of Duty will be on the system then again? Yeah, maybe we pay less commission, or I don't know, whatever they want to negotiate. But Microsoft has never, ever given anyone, maybe Sony or any of the regulators, a single reason to doubt that they want to make, they don't want to bring Call of Duty to PlayStation. It doesn't make sense for them. So it was kind of interesting, because when we look at the last year, Boom, who made this discussion public? It wasn't Microsoft. Microsoft, the gentlemen they were, the nice guys they were, they said right after the announcement, hey, we talked to the CEOs from Sony, and of course to the CEO Jim Ryan from PlayStation. We had a long conversation about our intentions and stuff, and that's it. And then we never heard something until Jim Ryan came out and made this conversation public. Suddenly, we've seen from Brazil, I can't remember the name of the regulatory. Was it Cade? Yeah, Brazil.
Cade, yeah, correct.
Yeah, yes. Brought conversations publicly, and then he actually attacked Phil kind of on a personal level, where he said publicly, well, Phil, I thought we had a private conversation, but blah, blah, blah. We all remember those stuff. So the interesting part is that Sony made this conversation a public conversation. Those deals, those agreements, they happen behind closed door. this is why I think personally this deal is so interesting, because we as the community get a peek behind the curtain how these kind of things work. But for the general public, it was Sony who brought it there, and now Microsoft made a quite smart move, because with a 10-year deal on the table, here, listen, Sony, you can have Call of Duty for 10 more years, and after that, we're not going to take it away, but we'll renegotiate everything. 10 years. If Sony says no to this, come on, how will they going to look? Even in the eyes of the regulators, and we'll get to that in a second, Boom, like you said, what I personally think that the regulators want to see. But even the diehard regulator, we've seen those PlayStation fans from the EU who said he's afraid that Call of Duty won't be on his PlayStation.
On his PlayStation specifically.
His PlayStation, yeah. So even those people must say, okay, come on, with 10 years, you can work. This works. So, yeah, I think they put Sony on the spot here, because at the end, Microsoft doesn't care if they have to say, well, 5 years, 10 years, who gives a damn? It's for them, it's about mobile. Yeah. And they want to keep Call of Duty on as many platforms as possible anyway. They literally said, hey, we want to treat it like Minecraft. And Minecraft isn't going anywhere after 10 years on PlayStation. So it really doesn't matter, but they put Sony publicly under pressure. And I love it. I love to see the way how they play this kind of like a payback. Yeah, okay, Sony, you made it public first. Now we have the public conversation. What do you have against a 10-year deal? Can you tell us? That's basically what they're saying, yeah? So, yes. And I love that. I love this shows a little aggressiveness, that they don't always play nice, because now they put Sony on the spot. And you can tell Sony has always been quite fast over the last year to respond, either publicly or Jim taking the flight directly to the EU or the CMA or wherever. Yeah, and now silence. Now we have silence. I think it's quite interesting. So, yeah, I wonder how this will turn out, man.
You know what? To your point, I think you're definitely onto something here. What's interesting and what seems to be, I think, at the forefront of this publicly announced 10-year deal. Now, again, it wasn't publicly like Phil Spencer came out and had a press conference. He did an interview. Microsoft did an interview with the New York Times, someone that they trust. They sat down. They went over everything. On the 11th, it was official. They sent this 10-year deal to Jim Ryan specifically and PlayStation. Jim Ryan and PlayStation, as of this show, have yet to respond. I don't know exactly what that means. Like I was saying in the opening, I have two minds of this, or two sides of the coin. One, I have to give credit to Hogue Law. Yesterday, Hogue Law went live. He did his video is up right now, where he talked about this 10-year deal. I know that there were some reports. Earlier yesterday that suggested that the FTC specifically may be loading up to do a lawsuit. I agree with Hogue Law. He thinks that's not the case. In order to have a lawsuit, they have to prove that there's something illegal about this deal. There's nothing illegal about the deal. We're going to get into why you think the CMA and the EU Commission have some thoughts. We're going to get to you in a second, but I want to welcome in Infinite Umbra. What's going on, brother? How you feeling?
Hey, Boom. Good morning. Good morning, guys. I'm not sorry about being a little behind.
That's all right. Yeah. That's life, brother. That's life.
I have a feeling
my phone. For the most beautiful voice in podcasting, we are gladly waiting. So All good.
And he has a
Thank you,
pretty
thank you.
damn good singing voice on top of all of that. There you go.
Ah, you flatter me. Ah. Good morning,
Listen, the
everybody.
crew is here. Steel Rain, best beard in the business. I think you're going to challenge the Viking that we know and love that works
man.
at Boxing Burger each and every week. The Wandering Dutch. What's going on, brother Steel Rain? How you feeling?
Hey, man, I'm feeling pretty spectacular, man. Boom, you sent out the call, man, and I had some free time available, so I got to jump in. Man, didn't get a chance to see what all you guys might be talking about today, but as in all things, me and Paul kind of do this thing on a week-to-week basis where we just kind of hit all topics right on over the head. So I'm interested to see what we got going on today.
This is actually going to be
this
the layup. This is the layup because
Nice.
we're going to get into the breaking news from yesterday. The 10-year deal offered by
Excellent.
Microsoft.
Excellent.
The no response from Sony.
Right.
I have two thoughts and theories about this. Hogue Law went live yesterday at 2 p.m. I was there for his whole show. As a matter of fact, his video was so good that not only do I recommend it, I watched it 3 times myself. Specifically because there were some concerns that, like Charlie Intel, obviously, if you know who they are on Twitter, they give all of the hot take Call of Duty information, and they're phenomenal. They had posted something that got people with their feathers ruffled about how the FTC potentially could be readying a lawsuit against Microsoft, and it was explained by Hogue Law that the only way that happens is if there's actual evidence the FTC can prove that there's something illegal about this deal, and there is not. So it's unlikely. We're going to get into everyone's opinion about the 10-year deal. Look,
Nice.
I'm going to say this, folks. I'm going to come right out and say it. Like I said minutes ago, I'm of 2 minds. I think personally, it's genius. It is the big stick in the room genius business maneuver, because right now they have officially painted Sony into a corner. They have put the fire to the toes.
Okay.
If Sony turns down a 10-year deal, it makes them look like the spoiled kid in class that just wants to be number one. And it does put them in, I would imagine, a bad light in front of regulators. I've said this before. I haven't really talked about this publicly until I started seeing other people talk about it. But the truth of the matter is, you know how we all joke around and we say, lying Jim Ryan? Well, he has been lying to regulators, folks. He has been making things up to go the way of Sony. He and Sony and PlayStation and SIE proper have been playing this wounded deer act since this was announced. PlayStation, folks, I don't have to reiterate, but I'm going to for context, has been in first place since 1994. Now, again, let's let that simmer in your thinking caps here, folks. They have been number one in console sales for 20 plus years, which equates to 2 decades. Okay, they've done it by producing great hardware, no problems there. They have incredible first-party IP, and their studios deliver top-tier movie-like experiences. There is no denying that Sony brings it. Now, did they, fumble the ball in the beginning of 2022 with a couple of releases? Yes, but you can't deny that The Last of Us remake is not gorgeous. It's not worth $70, but it's gorgeous. God of War is a 10. That is, whether you agree or you don't, it's a 10. And it's a perfect example of what Sony Santa Monica could bring to the table. With all of that said, folks, Sony is still the big D in the room when it comes to its customers. They treat us like we're second class, and they do things ultimately as if they don't care. And that's what happens when you're in first place as long as they've been. You don't care that you raise a console by $50. You don't care that you charge a publisher or a development studio the a-hole tax, as it's known, for crossplay. You don't care that you raised your games first before anyone and set an industry standard of games being $70. You don't care about any of these things because you don't care about the consumers. The shenanigans of we are, for the players. It is not. It is for the payers. And I have paid, and I'm tired of paying. And I'm quite sick of the way that they do business, which is why some of the stuff I stopped buying. But I want to bring this rodeo back around, and I want to go to Justin saying, obviously, he has just officially joined the Xbox Factor podcast. We appreciate you. Justin, a 10-year deal, to me, is both genius and a little excessive. Now, granted, Microsoft wants this deal done, and that's a fact. And like Hogue Law said yesterday, I think Microsoft is just tired of fighting with Sony. They just want to get that done. If Sony goes and removes their complaints after this sweetheart 10-year deal, then I would imagine regulators would move forward rather quickly. What are your thoughts on the 10-year deal? Is it excessive or is it genius?
I think, well, I mean, either way you look at it, you have to take your hat off to Jim Ryan. I know you don't like what he's doing, but he's invested $0 in this deal and he's walking away with a 10-year contract. I mean, he's winning by Sony. So, he's doing his job. And I don't like it. You don't have to like it, but he's making PlayStation money on this deal. And it's things like this that remind me, I'm not loyal to Xbox. I'm loyal to my family and my wallet. Right now, I'm loyal to Xbox because they save me the most money. That can change, and if they get number one, it probably will change after a while. That we've seen this happen time and time again with the number one leader. The hubris kind of creeps up there until they get humbled, and then they come back and they work for the players again.
It happens every generation. Look how the PS3 generation started. Sony, not that good. Yeah, Xbox One generation. Xbox not that good. It always happens. Yeah.
And it's always a narrative. It's not tech specs. It's not all this. It's who owns the story on it. And right now, Xbox is owning the story because Phil looks like the good guy. And that's what he's built his brand on. And if that's what you want to build your brand on and stick to it, I like that. And I'm going to support it. But that doesn't make me loyal to you because I'm not going to be loyal to a company. And he might be a good guy, and that might be why they hired him. And they, for Xbox, that is publicity. And not to take anything away from Phil, I don't know him personally. I don't think any of us do, but I like the way he's branding himself right now. But that doesn't make me loyal to him. And Jim Ryan's actually doing a really good job for PlayStation on this. It might bite him in the rear end later on and burn bridges. But at this moment in time, while he's CEO, I think he's doing a really good job for him.
Look, listen. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I think I can say with full authority that what you see with Phil is what you get. He's like that in real life. I can tell you for a fact that he, in fact, is that in real life. I will say that you are correct in saying that Jim Ryan's doing a good job, but at the end, at what expense? Because here's what something here's what people aren't talking about. If this deal is blocked, Microsoft is going to have to pay Activision Blizzard $3 billion. That they have confirmed that. If this deal is blocked, unions coming into gaming are probably blocked as well. If this deal is blocked, stocks are going to plummet for Activision Blizzard King. And even though something like King will still live on, there's going to be mass layoffs because of this deal not going through, because their stock is going to tank, and it's going to tank heavily. I
want this deal to go through.
Stuff here. Yeah, there's a lot of back end. Now, here's the other aspect to what I was talking about. You say that Jim's doing a good job, and you know what? You are correct. You're not the only one to say that. So many people have that conversation. Well, look what Jim's doing. He's making Microsoft do this, that, and the third. And that may be what it looks like on the surface. I don't think Microsoft ever wanted to take Call of Duty away simply because of how much money it makes. Same way Minecraft makes them billions of dollars, Call of Duty will continue to make billions of dollars, except it's going to go into Microsoft's bank account and not Activision Blizzard. But here's the thing. If this deal were to be stopped, does Sony actually think that Activision Blizzard is going to give them marketing rights after 2024? No, they would be that's a foolish man's bet.
Yeah, and that's why I'm talking about burning bridges. And I did a bit of research before coming on here. Do you know how many top 50 games Nintendo has without having Call of Duty on their system at all? They have 26 of the top 50 games sold. So, I mean, that, and you don't need Call of Duty for that. And Nintendo's proven that time and time again. So it's not a Call of Duty issue that's holding this deal up, because Nintendo could do it without it. It's
Well, they
people's
created
personal.
Splatoon, which is a just as popular shooter. As a matter of fact, in Japan right now, folks, for every 5 consoles, someone in those 5 consoles owns a copy of Splatoon, and that number is growing. So, Nintendo is one of the few publishers that have a near 1-to-1 ratio with first-party games and consoles sold. It is a sick, unbelievable number that they hold. I mean, a perfect example of that, when Breath of the Wild was released in 2017, there were more copies of that game sold than there were consoles. Think about that for a second. And, you know, they did it without Call of Duty. The last time Call of Duty was on a Nintendo console was the Wii U. I think it was Call of Duty 3 or something like that. It was awful. But that's going to change.
And looking at that, and looking at this deal, that just tells me that Microsoft doesn't want to fight it. They just want this deal to go through, and Call of Duty isn't the top prize, because if it was, they'd be fighting for it harder. Right now, they're just, okay, whatever you want. Sure. Okay. Look, we're not worried about Call of Duty. Take it. Just leave us alone.
Yeah,
it's not even really that for them. It's not even that, though. Like, the thing that, like,
they want
people are
brand
ignoring that
recognition,
Sony doesn't care about
marketing
that.
rights. Yes.
Yeah, but Sony doesn't care about that at all. Sony doesn't care if they got 1,000 years of marketing. They don't want Call of Duty signified to owned by Microsoft. That's the problem.
Yes.
That's what it really comes down to. They couldn't care less about, you gave us 10 years or something like that. That doesn't matter to them. They don't want Microsoft owning it.
Yeah. And you know what? It's funny because everything that they're claiming is going to hurt their business, they have done to Microsoft for 2 decades. Holding content back, locking up content, exclusive deals.
Yeah, that's the way they do it.
It absolutely is the way to do it. You know what? Before I bring Infinite Umbra and Steel Rain into the conversation, I gotta catch up on these super chats. There's been quite a few of them. Justin, thank you for copying and pasting these. The first one of the day comes to us from Drawn TJ. Drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, "Morning booming panel. Everyone in the chat, hit the like button. Appreciate that." Jacob Novick, generous friend of the program, drops a $5 super chat and says, "Hi, idea for Xbox. Many have tried making Lego Racers 3 but failed. Fund a Lego Racing 3 game.
Yeah,
I agree.
Full
exclusive in Game Pass day one for many years." Yeah, I love that.
I agree.
A Lego Master Chief in there, do all that stuff. Heck
yeah, they
especially
could.
nowadays.
Yeah, they absolutely could. That's a fabulous idea. And again, I will say this: I've had the conversation with Microsoft that family games need to be a bigger priority for not only for the platform but for Game Pass, because as great as something like Peppa Pig, I mean, if you remember, Peppa Pig came into Game Pass and it trended for 2 days, folks. And I'm not going to lie here, I got 1,000 out of 1,000 in Peppa Pig, and I played it. I actually played it with my nephew. Now I would have probably played it without him, but I had a freaking good time. I thought it was awesome. But let's see, we have Drawn TJ drops an additional $5 super chat, and he says, "Hello, Boxenberger," and welcome back, brother. And again,
hello.
Yes, and we also have another super chat from Drawn TJ, a $10 additional super chat. He says, "People are saying that Sony refused the deal, but they haven't communicated on that latest offer. I will say this: Sony is crazy and stupid if they don't take a 10-year deal." Yeah, again, my theory is, and I agree with Hogue on this, either they are going to take it and they're trying to figure out how to announce that, or they actually believe that they could block this deal, and
or they're trying to figure out what else they can ask for.
Well, yeah, they're not getting anything else. They're certainly not getting. They're not getting the Game
No.
Pass
No.
scenario, which a
I
lot of
didn't
people
think they'd
say.
get a 10-year on Call of Duty either.
Yeah, but
I mean, but that's being offered. That's not something that
Oh, yeah,
somebody
I know.
said, "Hey, you need to give us 10, or we're not going to be able to." It's being offered, so it doesn't. So at this point, you don't have to offer anything else
Oh, yeah, they don't.
because also at this point, if Microsoft really wanted to, they could take this court. They could take this whole entire deal to court and fight it.
Mhm.
Like
And
it's
win.
really
Yeah.
not that serious to them.
Yeah.
But because they're trying to get other things done, they have bigger plans, they have other moves they're trying to make behind the scenes, and this is
Mhm.
holding everything up. That's why they're willing to make this big of a concession. Now, if this is still a problem, Microsoft, at least to my understanding at this point, is willing to dig a little bit deeper to potentially maybe hurt some feelings. So
Yeah, I absolutely. We're gonna get to that. But listen, Jacob Novick drops 2 more super chats of $2 each. Thank you for that, Jacob. He says, "Idea: ask the Xbox community in private what to buy." I mean, I listen. Trust me when I tell you. If I know Phil is the head of Microsoft Gaming, but that dude is in tune. So is Sarah Bond. So
They
is
got
Matt Booty, which
They
you
got
don't really hear a lot from Matt Booty because he works behind the scenes. But like Aaron Greenberg's ear is really to the floor, so he understands as well. He also says if Xbox can do legally to ask what we want, yeah, they actually could ask what we want, but I think they know exactly what we want, and I know what they want as well. They want games for their streaming service known as Game Pass, and content in that field is key. Big Mad Mo, who's been a channel member for 7 months. Thanks so much for that. He says, shout out to Boom and the Paddle, and shout out to you as well. Infinite Umbra. Let's get your opinion on this, brother. This deal was confirmed by the New York Times. We've had a lot of people talk about this deal specifically. I want to read Benji Sales. He posted something. Let me see if I can find it over here. But good old Benji, who's again, it's an incredible member of the community, especially when it comes to the numbers game. That guy knows his stuff. He wrote on Twitter, and I want you to take this and run with it because I think it's incredibly important. Benji Sales says this: 10 years is a good offer, to be honest. Any company making a forever contract is a really bad business idea. Honestly, there's nothing preventing a renegotiation in the future for more time, and also give Sony lots of leeway if the franchise ever were to leave to pivot. And that's true. If at some point Microsoft said, hey, listen, we are after the 10-year deal, we are not putting it on there. Sony has a decade to figure it out, whether that's bring back SOCOM, whether that's bring back Resistance, whether that's create a new shooter with Bungie at the lead. There are a lot of things that they can do. But what are your personal thoughts on this 10-year offer, Umbra?
I mean, I think it's really generous. I mean, the thing of it, like I said, it comes down to is it's less an issue for Microsoft as far as being generous, and more so that Sony just doesn't want it to go through to begin with. So it wouldn't matter if they gave them a 20-year deal. It wouldn't matter if they gave them a 30-year, extension of the franchise being there. They don't want it on there. They don't want them owning it. I think it speaks of Microsoft knowing that they're in a power position to say, hey, we're going to give you this time. Ultimately, we know that Microsoft wants the game to be there. They want to treat it like they said, like Minecraft. I think that people hear that, and a lot of Sony guys might hear that and think that Phil is being disingenuous, but I don't think he is. I think he's being dead serious. Like, yeah, we're going to treat it like Minecraft. But the problem with Sony, for Sony at least, is that it seems to them it bothers their bottom line, and that's really what it comes down to. So they're just uninterested in hearing any of those types of things, and this is why it's as Jim Ryan had said, and that leaked, or not even leaked, but he flat out came out and said, that it was what was it, not untenable, but it was what was it it was not becoming, I guess I forgot the wording he used.
I'll look for it. I'll find the exact quote.
Yeah, but it wasn't enough for him. It was inadequate. That's the word.
Inadequate. Yep.
He said it was inadequate for a deal that they offered. And yeah, it's inadequate because for him, his bottom line is this should not be going through at all. So I don't want this to happen. And I'll be honest, this is the first time where I've actually seen it where, now you see them, the CMA, and you see the, FTC and everybody looking into now Apple, and their
Apple
the
and
cloud part.
and Google. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Where it seems like they really are, giving us a lot of actual scrutiny. So it seems like now, like this is the first time where I actually got a little concerned that the deal could be in jeopardy in some way. I'll be honest about that. And I mean, even Satya kind of came out recently, I think the other day, and mentioned something about it.
Yeah, he specifically said that even if the deal doesn't go through, we're still going to be in gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So before it was more, he was more confident in it that I'm sure the deal will go through. We're not too concerned about it, blah, blah, blah. Now it's like, well, even if it doesn't, we'll be all right. Now it's a little change in tone. So,
well,
I mean, first time I got a little concerned, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was concerning, but the reason why it sounds that way, folks, and I do want to just reiterate the context of it. Many sites specifically only quoted Satya saying that. They didn't quote the question that was asked in his response to it.
Please.
They specifically asked him, what if this deal doesn't go through?
What if?
What if this deal doesn't go through? And he said, even if the deal doesn't go through, we're still going to be in gaming. Now, that is an honest response. Could he have said something like, well, the deal is going to go through? I don't think the head of Microsoft actually says that. No. But, he did come out and say, if you want competition, let us have competition. And I think he's right in saying so. I mean, if you look and again, I talked about this in the pregame. The problem with a lot of people in this community in gaming journalism is that and I say we because I've done this myself, we sometimes look through a keyhole and we don't open the door to look the bigger picture, right? Because it's much easier to have a conversation of what you see through a keyhole rather than opening up the door and seeing this whole wide world in front of you.
That RTS view, huh?
Yeah, that RTS view. I think I know someone that says that on a regular basis. But the thing is this: Microsoft does not have a fingerprint at all in mobile. That's why this deal is important to them. They've been struggling to garner PC gaming support. They will do that with Blizzard. And obviously, having all of these studios added to Xbox Game Studios allow for them to create new IPs, which we know that 2 studios at Activision are working on. Infinity Ward and Treyarch are both working on open world, first-person space shooters that are going to eventually take the place of Call of Duty. And I would imagine that something like Toys for Bob could be used to make maybe a Banjo-Kazooie or remake the original Banjo-Kazooie. So at the end of the day, I think that Microsoft is going to be willing to do things for the EU and the CMA in that region outside of gaming. I think there may be some concessions behind the scenes where they cut the pricing of charging them for use of the Azure servers. There's all kinds of back-end deals that they can do for their government that will ultimately get this deal passed. If you remember when they talked about opening mobile and not keeping it, closed like Apple and Google, they did that at the beginning of the year, and they did that in this region because they knew at some point that Google and Apple were going to be investigated, and that was just announced. They're being investigated by the CMA right now for their closed store practices. Microsoft says, hey, listen, we're open to everyone. You can put this everywhere, here, there, and everywhere. And I think, again, ultimately, folks, this deal is going to go through. But Steel Rain, let's get your opinion on this. What are your thoughts on the 10-year deal? Because I'm gonna cycle back around because I'm gonna propose the question: what do you think Microsoft is willing to give up? Not just Call of Duty, but ultimately, what is your opinion on what they would do to get this deal done, regulators? Because they're willing to sign concessions. That's been confirmed.
Yeah.
and they're gonna sign concessions. So there's not gonna be a fight. It's not gonna be like Microsoft of the '90s. They are,
Unless they have to.
giving the knees, if you will, to get this deal done. But I'm interested to get your opinion first, Steele, on a 10-year deal. Did you see this coming?
For the 10-year deal portion of it, no. I'll be honest and say I didn't necessarily see it coming. But what it does define to me is that Microsoft is serious about getting this through with no further problems, right? And it's more so about timing than anything else. That's why they're trying to continuously push the envelope. They're not worried about the deal ending or it getting thwarted or anything like that. There's none of that. No matter what Satya tells you, no matter what Microsoft tells you, guys, look at the deal. Look at what's been going on in the industry over the last 2 decades. There is no reason for this deal to be blocked other than you have a problem with Microsoft spending $70 billion more than anybody else is willing to spend in the gaming industry. So in turn, you're also openly admitting that you're open to holding back gaming overall, right? Because Microsoft has also said about this Call of Duty deal that they want to bring Call of Duty to the Switch, to Nintendo. So in turn, no matter what Sony says, at the end of the day, this is just Microsoft just playing nice. Hey, we're trying to get this done by June next year. We don't want to take extra time on this because it's going to hold off everything else that we want to get done because our board members have already asked, hey, what's next? What do we want to do next? What are we going to do next? Satya's multiple times has come out. And Phil's multiple times have come out and said, hey, we're in this. We just want to compete with the same way that our competitors been doing for the longest time. They've even tried to separate themselves out and say, look, a few years ago, they were like, we're not trying to compete with Sony. Microsoft has come out and said this. That's not our goal. Our goal is to expand the industry. But when you were stuck, and you guys brought up this point earlier, and it hit a point with me, where you had this tit for tat thing, right, that we've seen over the last 20 years too. Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, in that conversation earlier on with PlayStation, but really just Xbox and PlayStation because there is nobody else. Look, I know we got to throw Nintendo in that conversation, but let's be honest, guys, they're not in the same conversation. Like we can compare numbers and say how they sell games and that is not in the same conversation until Nintendo decides that they need to make hardware that is similar to what the Xbox and PlayStation are doing. It is not part of the same conversation. They're just included in the conversation. That's it. But the reason I wanted to touch on that is the only reason it's been tit for tat is because Sony has made it that way.
That's correct.
They have let it happen that way.
Yep.
How do you let the little brother of the industry, no matter how much you want to come out and say, oh, Microsoft's a tech giant and in software, yeah, they are. And they got laptops and they got other devices in now, yeah. But in the gaming space, who has been running that space for as long as they have?
Sony, yes.
Okay. So if that's the case, it is Sony's fault that they've let this tit for tat thing happen. That shouldn't be the case. You're the one that's supposed to be the top dog in the industry, and everybody should be coming to you, and everybody looks at you a certain way because you have a certain echelon of quality, right?
Yes. Yes.
Why is that not enough? It's not enough. No matter how many people try to spin it and try to make it their own story, obviously the way that gaming has been going is not enough.
Yep.
So Microsoft is going to do whatever they need to do to make sure they can get this Activision Blizzard deal done because there are bigger things at play. Hey, maybe we can get Diablo on the Switch. Hey, maybe we can get a future StarCraft on the Switch also. Well, maybe we can get it on all platforms. Maybe everybody can have access to it. The only people that may not have the same access, and this is something that I think Jim Ryan brought up, oh, you may not be able to access games the same way you used to.
Yeah, he said something. You know what? I'm gonna read. Let me pull it up because I think what you're talking about is basically dropping bombs. Let me find it. Hold on just a second. I had pulled it. Okay, I actually have it in front of me right now. Now, what he said, Jim Ryan said in the statement. Jim Ryan, the chief executive of Sony Interactive Entertainment, said that it was not true regarding what Phil Spencer had to say about maintaining and growing the existing Call of Duty business is pretty central to the economics of the deal, meaning that they would be foolish to pull Call of Duty away from, of course, PlayStation, because PlayStation right now is the number one platform for Call of Duty. It makes a boatload of money for everyone involved. And he says it's not true that his company had hold on a sec, that his company had misled regulators regarding this deal. He said that Microsoft was a tech giant with a long history of dominating industries, and that it's highly likely that the choices gamers have today will disappear if this deal goes through. Now, that is straight up falsities, because if there's anyone that paints their customers into a corner, that makes people go out and buy their hardware, it's Sony. They have done it for decades, specifically with the PlayStation 5 and how many exclusives. Is anyone here, I'm just looking around the room, has played Final Fantasy VII on your Xbox? Because I know that I haven't. I've been waiting. Forspoken, probably never coming. Final Fantasy 16, probably never coming. What about all the other marketing deals that they've done? The exclusivity deals that are simply on a PlayStation. What about the blocking rights that were confirmed that they pay developers and publishers? I don't know. But please continue.
And Sergio brings up another good point that people do forget about also, is that Microsoft never went to Activision. Activision came to Microsoft, right? And I feel like that was, and we've talked about this several times here on other shows, but I feel Activision had faith in what Microsoft is doing. And obviously, since they were shopping themselves out, they had the opportunity. Sony had the opportunity to jump in that bag. But they weren't going to spend $70 billion. So,
I was going to say, I think that's the problem. They don't have that bag to spend it.
And whose fault is it that you can't spend that bag?
That's Sony's fault. Yes.
And who is in turn, if you can't spend that money, who is, and what is your competition doing? Okay, you don't like what they're doing because they could potentially, again, air quotes, potentially, because we have no fact, information, or anything to say other than Microsoft and Xbox saying that Game Pass is profitable and things are working, and that's all we have. But we have no factual information to say Microsoft doesn't have 50 million subscribers. Sony does. They had to combine their services together, right? What made them do that? What made them even think about that? Now, in business, you tend to be a few years, maybe 5 years ahead, maybe even a decade ahead, depending on who you have in that building, really, and wanting to be ahead of the game. But in all things taken into consideration, you're the one that started the service side of started to service this whole service thing first, right? On the gaming side, Sony, you didn't take advantage of it. You didn't see it. You saw people spending $60, $70 was worth it. That was more of a better investment for you. Single player games, that's more of an investment for you. People like those things. Great. You made Microsoft play a different game, which is why they spent the money that they have, which is why they're wanting to give you all the concessions that they feel is okay. As, like, for an example, giving you 10 years of Call of Duty, and who knows, within the next 5 years, Call of Duty could die. So Microsoft is essentially saying, hey, we're going to give this game to you for 10 years, regardless of what happens to it. So, and at that point, like you guys made the point earlier, if you, at this point, decide that this concession is not enough or that you need more, I personally feel that this is where Phil, Satya, Microsoft, Xbox finally puts their foot down and says, look, we either are going to compete or we're just going to take all this to court so we can really find out how we're going to make this industry better for everybody, because that's our goal.
And you see, that is a magnificent point. See, because look, folks, I'm going to get on a tangent here, so please bear with me. One of the things we have to look at, and I say we, maybe I'm not speaking for everyone, right? Sometimes gamers take gaming for granted. And what do I mean by that? The affordability of gaming isn't granted. Entertainment, when you're struggling to pay the mortgage or the rent or put food on the table, is the first thing to go. Because more importantly, you have to feed yourself, you have to feed your family, you have to be warm in the winter and cool in the summer, right? That's what a responsible man, woman, whoever do for themselves as well as their families.
Yeah, I don't
Okay?
think gaming's on Maslow's hierarchy of needs at all.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's not. And we sometimes take for granted that we have the ability to, when life sucks, and this year and since 2020, since COVID, life has sucked for a lot of people. Sometimes you just need to sit in front of your TV and play a game and go somewhere else. And there's nothing wrong with that. Coping is the best form of medication, and sometimes that medication could come as something as simple as a video game. We have seen Sony do things to their customers that I'm not going to reiterate, that constantly put their players behind the eight ball, and I don't like it. And again, this is not me being a Microsoft fanboy. This is me being let's be real, folks. Let's put on the real life big boy pants and talk about how Xbox is allowing for every ilk of financial stability to be a part of the gaming conversation. Nintendo doesn't do that because they don't give a flying F. They charge you what they charge you, and that's it. Sony goes out of their way because of their bullishness and their market leader capabilities, and they charge $50 for a console that launched 2 years ago extra. They go out of their way and they do things like cross-play tax and charge you and me $10 for the PlayStation 5 version of a game, or use of their controller. Now, I love their controller. I think it's genius. I absolutely think the DualSense is fantastic. You may disagree, but that's my opinion. But I already bought the controller. In fact, I bought two. Why should I have to pay for use of it on an old game? That's preposterous. But Sony charges people. Now, I don't pay their $10 upgrade fee. I just won't do it. I'm not giving them the 10 extra bucks. But with all of that said, this is what I think is steering to your fantastic point. Microsoft is changing the industry for the better. They are allowing more people to experience gaming, regardless of whether you're a diehard gamer or a mobile gamer, and everyone is treated the same. And I think that is an important aspect of what you had to say. But please continue.
That's pretty much it on that point of them getting 10 years for that deal. It's absurd, it's obscene. And again, I'm always going to bring this point up, and you can call it what about is. I don't care what y'all call it. At the end of the day, if this was on the other foot,
Yes.
if Sony was getting this deal, it would be, of course, it'd get scrutinized and everything else, but you would be crazy to not to believe that this deal would be going differently.
Yeah.
It would be working in their favor because this is what they have done.
They would make this exclusive immediately to move people away from Xbox.
Because you know what their point would have been? It's just Call of Duty. You got other games you can make, right?
Yes.
There's other games, right?
Yeah.
You don't need Nintendo doesn't need Call of Duty.
They have Halo.
Oh.
They don't need Call of Duty.
Wow, guys. You
Yeah.
see how that conversation doesn't work the same the other way? That's why I get kind of heated about it. Like, not necessarily heated about the comment, but I get real passionate about this conversation because this has been my problem with Sony the entire time they've been in this business. This has been the problem. Sure, you can make exclusives and everything else, but as soon as competition is brought to your front door and it's not working in your favor, oh, now there's a problem. After you just wanted to kill your competition. So it's just one and one doesn't equal two sometimes. And that's pretty much my thoughts on that.
And they still want to kill competition. Let's not be. But the thing is that's why it raised so many concerns when what was it, Ricardo was his name? When he came out and saying what he's saying, it just, to me, I feel like you're right, that it will absolutely go a different way, because I feel like a lot of those people on there are Sony fans in a way, because Sony is more synonymous with gaming in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. I listen, they've been in gaming. They've been the market leader for 2+ decades. They continue to lead even in this generation. They are outselling now, maybe in this country, not outselling like they were in Europe 5-1. It is a much closer conversation But I think ultimately what helps Microsoft is a $300 digital console and Xbox Game Pass. That's something that Sony can't do. Eventually, they're going to lower their price, I would hope, but they didn't. They upped their price, and that's why you saw Microsoft pivot to have more Series S consoles available this holiday than Series X consoles, because they're literally half the price of what Sony is selling theirs for. And if you're a frugal gamer, and I shout out to Pong Soul who brought this up. I think he actually brought it up on the last week's episode of the 2 weeks episode of Living Split Screen, where he talked about Target having the Series S for $250, giving you a $50 gift card, and if you use your red card, which is their credit card, you get it for technically for $187. I don't think people know so much about that, but that is, that's a big deal. And I just, I want to welcome in we've got new viewers here. A Coral Guy in the chat asks, can we actually talk about games instead of another Sony bad for consumers? Microsoft is good. Now, I mean, listen, you're obviously new. I welcome you with open arms. I hope that you subscribe. You hit the thumbs up, not the thumbs down. But come on, dude. I mean, honestly, this is breaking news. And I said this in the opening. If you're tired of talking about this, I hear you. I'm not going to argue with you. No one's right, no one's wrong. There are plenty of other podcasts you can check out that maybe talk about your favorite game. We're going to get to games, but this is the big story. It is a dominating story, and it seems as if only Sony fans don't want us talking about this. Well, I'm going to continue to talk about this because
I think you'd be doing your fans a big disservice, Boom, if you weren't talking about the biggest news that dropped yesterday.
Yes, I absolutely agree. But listen, let's bring this back around. And Steel Rain, I'm going to start first with you. Okay. We know that they're offering 10 years. Mm-hmm. In your opinion, what is Microsoft willing to give on top of that? Do you think there's anything more they could offer to regulators that would be more than 10 years? I think this is the limitation, personally. I know that Jim Ryan does not want this Call of Duty and Game Pass. That's not going to happen. I would then go to court, because at that point I think it would be somewhat illegal to have a regulator tell us, after we spent $70 billion and that we can't put it on our service that we're looking to compete. And by the way, we're still number 3.
Yeah. To me personally, I agree with you, Boom. I don't think there's any other concessions that need to be made, or anything else that I could possibly think of. And the only reason I necessarily say that is because all the other IP that Activision currently has is not proven. It's been gone and out of the window for quite some time at this point. Sure, us who can reminisce on it and say, oh man, look at all this great IP. Nobody else cares. What do they make? Call of Duty. That is what they are known for.
Yes.
You want to bring in Overwatch in the conversation? Yes, that's the other side of the conversation. Sure. So now you have Call of Duty and Overwatch. Okay, what else you want to throw in that conversation? StarCraft. Oh, well, what is StarCraft? People haven't played that game in Lord knows how long.
Decades, dude.
Yeah. So you're going to make another concession for Overwatch, which is free to play and everywhere anyway?
Right.
I don't think so. So at this point, you only have Call of Duty that would be on the table that would be worth anything. So the only other thing that you could offer is that it wouldn't come to Game Pass. But like you mentioned, Boom, and like I mentioned earlier, you'd be shooting yourself in the foot. And again, why are you spending this money for your competition to tell you that they can do something that you can't? That just makes no sense to me personally. So I don't think anything else needs to happen. I don't think anything else needs to be added on. World of Warcraft, thank you, Sofa King. And Diablo 4. The reason I didn't bring those up because those are more. World of Warcraft is still more PC focused. It hasn't come to console and everything else.
Yeah.
But and then Diablo 4, Diablo has to prove itself. Sure, Immortal is great, doing its thing on mobile, which is again, you want to talk about the mobile play, Candy Crush, Diablo Immortal doing its thing. That's the conversation that Microsoft is trying to focus on. But if we want to keep coming back to what everybody else cares about, which is COD, that's necessarily the only other thing. And I don't think there needs to be anything else, man. I genuinely.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, Umbra, let's get your opinion on this, brother. Concessions are going to be a part of this deal. Microsoft has already said that they are willing to offer up concessions. That's not a surprise.
Mhm.
A 10-year deal is, I think, again, I said this privately, I will say it publicly. I think it is the canary in the coal mine for Microsoft, because I think if Sony were to walk away from this deal and say no to a 10-year deal, then they're obviously smoking something, because that is a decade. That's 7 years on top of the 3-year deal. Now, I think that ultimately the problem isn't Call of Duty, it's the marketing rights. They don't want Call of Duty to no longer be associated with PlayStation and now be associated with Xbox. Well, that's, in the words of the late and great Richard Pryor, tough titty. You don't have $70 billion to invest because, well, you're not $1 trillion company. Umbra, what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I mean, I get tired of the whole concession thing because
Mhm.
it's like what Steele just pointed out. Like you feel like, man, I bought this thing and I paid $70 billion, and you have this marketing
Mhm.
leader here crying about it to force us into a position by like basically like crying to the higher ups, or in a way to force us to, in a way to, acquiesce. And it just seems tasteless just because we know how Sony has done what they've done for so long.
Yep.
So just as gamers, it feels wrong for that reason.
Mhm.
But you know, like my thing is concessions wise, if Microsoft is willing to make that concession, it is what
Yeah.
it is at the end of the day.
At the end of the day. Mhm.
Yeah, because I mean their bottom line is to make sure this deal goes through.
Yeah.
And ultimately we already know that the biggest point what they're looking to get across is for mobile. So they couldn't really care less, I guess, about Call of Duty right now. As far as it, I mean, not, I mean, let me take that back. I won't say they don't care. They couldn't care less, but they couldn't care less about it actually being on the platform, because that's what they want anyway. I will say though, if you offer 10 years rather to Sony for Call of Duty to be there, and they're like, nope, and I don't think they'll verbally come out and say no, Sony. But for them to come out and say no to that, I think would paint them into a bad corner where it makes it look like, yeah, like what we were all believing anyway. Like it's
Yeah.
never been about Call of Duty being on Xbox or owned by Microsoft. Rather, it's the fact that they don't want them having it, period. And that would cement it right there, because 10 years is unprecedented for any company to say, yeah, here you go, 10 years,
Yeah.
no problem. So it would just make Sony look that more worse in my eyes, I think. But the problem again goes to in my eyes, and I have no way to back it up outside of that Ricardo guy saying what he said, is that I think that there is an undue bias in that camp anyway.
Yeah, I
I know
agree.
it's a bit of tinfoil headery, but I think they're
No,
biased
no, no,
against
no. You're
Microsoft
you're
to
not
begin with.
you're not wrong for suggesting that, because again, this doesn't, listen. They are one person. I'm assuming that they don't speak for the entire EU Commission and the CMA, but at the same time, they're still representatives. And obviously, when you look, I use myself as an example, folks. If you don't know, if you're new to the channel, I'm a retired New York City police officer. I did it for 21 years. I was blessed to go back to the community I grew up as a kid. I even was the youth officer in the high school that I graduated. It was a dream job come true, and I served for 21 years, and it was the best 21 years of my life working. If I were at any point to go and comment on, let's say, a murder or something, or let's say, for instance, there was some question as to the way someone was treated by another police officer, and I went on social media in my civilian clothes and I made a comment. Do you know what's going to happen to me immediately? I'm going to get suspended. It's called 30 and 30. I'm going to be suspended for 30 days without pay, and I'm going to lose 30 vacation days at the minimum. That's just starting. So what these regulators have done, not only is it in bad taste, but it does show the tinfoil hattery, if you will, and it's a bad look. And I'm actually surprised that they weren't suspended for doing it, because if I did that in the capacity of a police officer, I would get in big trouble. But please continue, Umbra.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, it comes down to like, and I said it before. The guy saying what he said to me is just speaks to an inner feeling that a lot of us had already,
Mhm.
and people tried to write it off like, well, that's just this one guy, but he has contacts there. He has people who he know that are his confidants or whatever, his colleagues that that he's likely voiced these types of concerns with and said, hey, I don't want that going through. And these people probably shared that sentiment with him. And he was on that team just 5 months ago. So he was overseeing this with them. So I put it I know it's like I said, it's 10-4 headery because we can't quite prove it. It's conjecture, but at the same time, it definitely does feel like, if this was Sony doing this and they actually had the bag, as we were saying a minute ago, to actually try to acquire ABK, it'd probably be going a lot smoother for them right now than I think it would be going for Microsoft and the other way around. So I don't know. I think it's just a bias around in that camp that we can't quite point to. And I know saying it out loud, sometimes people are like, they kind of write it off. But honestly, that's just more my thoughts go with that.
No, I mean, listen, it's great opinions, brother, and we appreciate you and Stu so far. Boxenberger, let's get your opinion on this, brother. You had some thoughts and some theories. What else is Microsoft, if any, willing to do to get this deal done? Because again, ultimately, I think we all have agreed on this panel already. As we close in on 450 people here in the live chat, thank you for being here. That the play here, as great as it and as simplistic as we all want to just be like, hey, look at the spotlight, Call of Duty, great. It's not. It's mobile. Phil Spencer has said it multiple times. Mobile. Listen, folks, gaming is massive.
Mhm.
Mobile makes the most money out of any gaming space.
By far. Yeah.
By leaps and
Easily.
bounds.
Yeah.
Leaps and bounds, folks.
It's ridiculous.
Microsoft currently has zero thumbprint in this industry, and they know that they want to make money in that industry, and they're buying the best in the business in King, which, by the way, Candy Crush made $1 billion in 90 days, folks.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that for a second. So, of course, Call of Duty, that's what Sony wants you to believe. It's all about Call of Duty. It's not. It is about mobile for Microsoft.
Yeah.
It is a big deal. What else do you think they could potentially offer, and should they offer anything else to regulators to get this deal done? Box.
I said that's a very interesting question. I don't think that they will offer anything, honestly, because even the regulators have to obey the law. And if anyone like the CMA, let's take the CMA as an example here, would go out and block this deal, Microsoft could sue them. And what legal action does the CMA have to actually block the deal? I've had on my show the World of Gaming, Luke Steele, who is actually a lawyer in the UK, and he represents different companies, and his job is actually on a regular day or daily basis to deal with the CMA and the EU, by the way. And he also said, if that happens, they're going to sue them because there is not really a legal ground to blocking this deal. What would this mean? Of course, it would mean this can go on forever. It will take a long, long time. It will cost a lot of money. So obviously, Microsoft is trying to avoid that. So if it's little things, minor things like the 10-year deal that they offered, of course they're gonna do that before they go to court. But if they would have to sign something that would substantially hurt their business case for when they acquire ABK, I don't think they would do it. I would bet they would go to court.
Yeah, I agree.
Because and even if it takes a few months longer, then because on what ground or what basis could a regulator like the CMA block that deal? We've talked about this many times in gaming. It wouldn't matter for the gaming industry as a whole. Yeah, of course there would be a shift, hopefully, in the console space, because it would mean that the Xbox can compete on a better level with Sony. than they can do right now. But as an overall industry, Microsoft is not even closely gonna be a monopoly. It is just an opportunity for them to grow. And I've said this in the green room. If I look at the regulators in the CMA and especially here the EU Commission, I don't think they care about gaming. Why are they scrutinizing this deal the way they do? They are not doing that because they are concerned of a shift in the gaming industry. Not at all. The problem is that it is Microsoft, this giant American tech company. The EU and the UK, they are just afraid of an Apple, a Google, and of course a Microsoft and Amazon, these gigantic, ginormous tech companies that have a lot of data from all their customers, that they don't have a direct impact. A lot of these companies don't even pay taxes here in Europe. I've said this in the green room. Apple paid €1 last year.
Yep.
1 single euro taxes here in Germany.
Ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous.
When you told me that, I thought that my microphone and headphones cut out, because I said, wait. Could you repeat that? And yes.
How many zeros did you forget?
€1. It's
and
what
that is
to pay in taxes.
And that is what the EU is ultimately afraid of. They will give if they approve that deal, they will allow one of these giant tech companies to grow even further in a new market, another market that they might have a significant footprint in then. And that's what they are scared of. And that's why they scrutinize the deal. I truly believe those are professionals. At the end of the day, those are professionals. They don't give a damn about the gaming market per se and the way we do. Like, we talk all year, Sony and Call of Duty and that stuff. And while this is the interesting part for us gamers, for us as the community, I don't want to downplay this. It is super interesting and fun to discuss. But ultimately, the regulators, they don't look at this just as, okay, what's happening in the gaming market. They look at this one picture above, and that is they allow Microsoft to grow even further with one of the biggest acquisitions ever, not just in gaming, ever. So I think that's really the concern. So when you ask the question, Boom, what would Microsoft have to give a CMA or the EU in order for them to approve the deal? I feel like they need to ease that concern, that it doesn't make Microsoft an even more, quote unquote, evil giant tech company. I think we need to think on this kind of level, and I'm really not sure what they could offer, because at the end, this deal isn't illegal. There's nothing on this deal which is illegal. There's nothing on this deal that says, hey, this is good for anyone, bad for anyone, pardon me. On the contrary, we've said this before. If you look at what it would mean for the staff at ABK, if this deal didn't go through, they won't get their unions. A lot of people will lose their jobs. We know that for sure. If you look at these kind of facts, and I'm really not talking about us saving a little money because Call of Duty is coming to Game Pass, but if you look at this as a whole, this is a precedence for like the first union in gaming. Worldwide,
gaming history, yes.
In gaming history, came out of this entire discussion. Ray informed that I think it was April or May this year. Yeah, it is. If the deal doesn't go through, that will harm these employees, the people in the wider in the wider gaming industry, even outside of ABK, will be scared because they also hope, of course, for unions. Things are not going well at EA either, or Ubisoft, or any of these bigger companies. Yeah, so this is really like a precedence for them as well. And if you think at this on a holistic level here, I don't think you can actually argue about this deal being bad per se.
Yes.
So I don't see really a reason why they wouldn't take this case to court if they're gonna block it. So yeah, sorry for taking so much time, but
no. This is a conversational podcast. I love what you're putting down because I think you're bringing a lot of context to this outside of it simply being Call of Duty. I think there is something to be said about there are ramifications, and I think the regulators understand that ramifications that they're going to again. The deal itself is not going to hurt the industry. Now, granted, no. I believe there are going to be some backdoor concessions that we don't know about with governments in regards to Microsoft potentially lowering entry of cost for their use of Azure servers in these regions, potentially lowering the cost of Azure servers for consumers in these regions. There might be, I think there's going to be quite a few concessions that have nothing to do with gaming per se. I think it's going to be Microsoft is going to be making deals with these governments, the UK and the EU, and of course the FTC to say, hey, listen, yes, there are going to be some changes. We can lower the cost of entry here. We can help you out in these areas. We won't raise prices for X amount of years. We'll lower costs here. I think that when you start talking about these behind the scenes conversations, they're going on right now. And I think ultimately, though, this deal will go through because of the Call of Duty concession of 10 years and all of these deals that Microsoft could potentially offer these governments that use their services. And I think that is important. But Justin, let's get your final point on this topic that has run into an hour and 20 minutes. And that's fine because it is a big deal. We do have a gaming topic that we're going to cover. And that, of course, is pun intended. But I want to get your opinion, Justin. What is Microsoft willing to do ultimately to get this deal done?
Well, I don't believe they should have even really done the Call of Duty thing, but there are a lot smarter people than me making these decisions. But just to get creative, I don't think that they should, but I mean, Steel Rain, you mentioned World of Warcraft, that has a huge expansion coming out on the 28th.
Crazy. Yep.
And if anybody that plays it knows that it's coming to console. They just did a controller port for it, which they've never done before. I mean, it's been around for how many years, and they've never ported
it's official. I think they've finally made it official. They've been tweaking it in the background and everything.
Well, they did the UI update, so you no longer have to use third-party products to make your UI manageable. So, I mean, it's official, but not official. Probably one of those worst kept secret things. What if they came out and said, okay, well, if you're on Game Pass, you're going to get your World of Warcraft subscription subsidized into that, or maybe
which is ultimately what I think is going to happen. Yeah, I agree.
Or it's a part of the new mobile one that you've been talking about that, might happen.
Yeah, Game Pass for mobile. Yes, I believe that's a thing. Yeah.
How much would that screw with Square Enix and Sony if they said, okay, it's coming to console and you guys can have it too, but you got to pay the membership? Yeah. I mean, that's gonna hurt Square Enix, which is a huge earner for PlayStation, because a lot of Final Fantasy 14, you have Black Desert Online, a couple like that, but Final Fantasy 14 is really one of the only viable.
Isn't that only currently on PlayStation and PC?
And I played it on PlayStation. It plays very well.
Yeah.
It's the only real viable MMO that doesn't feel like a gotcha or a pay to win right now that's on the market. The only one, and they're making money hand over fist on the PlayStation with it. So what if World of Warcraft, the OG original bestseller MMO, came to console and they said, okay, well, you know what, we're also not going to keep that exclusive. Sony, you can have that too. It's just going to be cheaper if you're an Xbox owner. Help people make the decision. Don't make the decision for people. Help them come to the decision, because people like making decisions that way. They don't like being told what to do. So, but look at what happened with Destiny once they left their studio. You had a lot of support studios helping them funneling in tons of content. As soon as they left, that content dried up, and now who's going to own? If they don't own, I don't know if the deal actually closed, but who's going to own Destiny here soon? It's consolidation, and the reason I don't give much thought to the EU being too worried about Microsoft owning even more of a gaming section is look what happened with Dodge and Fiat a couple years ago. It's another multi-billion-dollar deal when Fiat bought 41% stake in Dodge. And now Jeep, the vehicle that helped win a couple world wars, is owned not by America anymore. But it's a global economy, and that's what's going to happen. They're going to move. I mean, look at what Bungie did. I mean, they've been owned by Xbox and now PlayStation. So everything's going to be dynamic, I think, in the future. And there's no reason this doesn't go through.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this particular topic. I do want to move on to one that does that we were talking about specifically about games, but we're also going to be talking about the Elite-Ism that comes the way of many PC users, as well as more specifically PlayStation users. There is an Elite-Ism that goes on that is used almost to the effect of bullying in some social spaces. And I want to bring up a particular tweet that made me want to talk about this specifically. And I want to give the proper shout out. Now, the guy's name, his name is Nico on Twitter. It's at Nico Muller. He posted something that I thought was worthy of a conversation, specifically when you talk about Xbox, specifically when you talk about Xbox Game Pass. And he says, I would never dump on a small indie developer, a game developer, just because their game isn't, and he has two X's here, a AAA game or on my console. Some people on this app really lost their dignity. Those are great games. Give the creators the credit that they deserve. Now, what games am I talking about? Okay. He has 4 games here that are currently exclusively for Xbox and exclusively in Xbox Game Pass. Now, you can go out and buy these games if you want to hand over development dollars, your monies to the developers. By all means, with Game Pass, you can still buy games. Guess what, folks? It's not a lie. You can buy games. It works. Yes. But they have 4 games here, 4 of which I am currently have downloaded, 2 of which I'm playing, which I can't stop playing, and 2 I'm going to get into. And the games that he has here are Somerville, which I'm hearing. I played the first hour. I'm absolutely loving it. That is the creator of Inside, folks. If you don't know what Inside is, you should check it out. It's an amazing 10
Limbo as well, I believe, right?
Limbo as well, yeah. Yes. Vampire Survivors, literally digital crack cocaine, because last night Boom was up to 2:17 in the morning because of that. I got one more run in me. And before I
saw you still on there at 1 a.m. when I went to sleep and I was playing Vampire Survivors.
when I finally put down the controller because I was falling asleep while running around the world, and I was like, you know what? It's time for this run to be the last one.
I tried it on touch controls yesterday.
Dude,
on the
it works
phone.
great on touch controls.
It's pretty solid.
Yes,
yeah.
I played it on my phone. It's ridiculous. Pentiment is a part of the conversation. Again, that's a 10 out of 10 for many people. And Monkey Island, or the return of Monkey Island on Game Pass.
Love Monkey Island series.
And that's multi-plat as well, but it is on Xbox Game Pass exclusively. These are 4 games made by smaller development studios. All of them are getting very good reviews. Somerville, not the 10 I was expecting it from some reviewers, but it's getting 7s and 8s. And for me right now, it is a 9 because I love the developer, but I love the story that's being told. Some jankiness, sure, but it doesn't ruin the experience for me. All of these games are on Xbox Game Pass. All of them are by small developers. I want to go first to Justin on this. The thing that annoys me about elitism in any industry, whether it be fashion, sports, automotive, specifically gaming, that's what we're here to talk about. There is some, actually, you know what? I don't want to shout anybody out because I don't want to embarrass anybody. But there are some people in the chat that says all Xbox gamers care about is getting their games for free on Xbox Game Pass. And
yeah, I address them a little bit.
I care about that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
what's wrong with that?
It's technically not for free. You're paying a monthly subscription. Now, if you're a frugal bastard like me, you go out and you buy 2 or 3 years in advance and you load up that subscription for 3 years. And I'm good for the next 3 years. And I'm gonna once I do the family plan with my nephew and one of our best friends, I'm gonna have to load up again because they're gonna consolidate that a bit. So I'm paid up right now until 2025, folks. I'm good until November in 2025. But Justin, I want to start with you. These 4 particular games that were brought up by this Twitter user are all great games. Now, maybe they're not your favorite game, maybe they're just not your genre, but that because they're made by small developers does not take away the importance of them being a part of the conversation. What are your thoughts to the Elite-Ism that goes on specifically when you kind of point the finger at Sony gamers that, will immediately say, hey, Xbox, you don't have a God of War, and we don't. And we are going to have one eventually, but we don't have one right now. Is there anything wrong with enjoying these smaller experiences?
No, not at all. And I mean, I when you started talking about that, I pulled up my Steam to look at 2 games that I play on PC. And here's an example of how Xbox Game Pass helps everybody. I don't like the way the Xbox app works on PC. It kind of sucks. So I played Medieval Dynasty, came to Xbox Game Pass for free. I played it. Loved the game. I went over to Steam and bought it on Steam because Steam has a better modding community. And they have a better UI. I just like playing games better on Steam. But I also pay for Game Pass. So that game made money off me on Game Pass, and it made money when I went over and bought it on Steam. And that game eventually came to the Xbox console. It's an indie game made by a Turkish developer, I believe. And then another one I'm playing, and I have 80 hours in that game, Medieval Dynasty. Then the other one that just came to console that I've been playing on PC forever, I have 471 hours in Bannerlord. That just came to Xbox. It's not on Game Pass, but that's another indie game, and I've spent almost 500 hours in that game. For me, it's about gameplay. It's not about the budget, graphics. If it can keep me entertained, that's what I'm after. Final Fantasies are some of my favorite games, but there's some of my favorite games I never beat. And there's some of my favorite games because of the mechanics. I like playing. I like being able to sit back and play that for a little while, but then at some point it gets a little too convoluted for me. But it really is all about gameplay. And these smaller indie titles can take the risk that more, your AAA games can't take, because if they lose a profit, they're losing billions. If an indie developer goes belly up, it happens so often, it's not even a story, and they can recover. So they're the ones, I believe, that drive real innovation in gameplay. So without them, I think our gaming scene's a lot more boring, and it hurts us all. So to take a look at AAA and say that's where it matters, your AAA is going to look a lot worse if you don't have these indies available.
I agree. I think that one of the things that we've seen Sony use to great success when they actually cared about indies, because they don't really anymore. Now they're starting to once again pay attention to the indie community. But when you have very good to great indie titles stacked with your AAA bombs, it makes the entire platform run like a well-oiled machine. And we're going to see that specifically for Xbox in 2023. But before I bring in Boxenberger into the conversation, I got to thank some of the super chats and channel member messages that have come in. Jonas the Dad, welcome to the program, brother. He drops a $2 super chat and says, Ryan wants no Call of Duty ever on Xbox Game Pass, marketing with PlayStation. Yeah, I 1000% agree. Jacob Novick drops an additional and very generous $5 super chat and says, if Phil had made Bungie a forever contract, then Sony wouldn't own Bungie right now, and Lionhead Studios hadn't been able to split themselves. Yeah, I just think that there's no such thing as a forever contract, so Sony's ridiculous. Gamer by Choice, who's been a channel member, my God, folks, 37 months. Thank you for the generosity. He says, I think Microsoft is just trying to get the ABK deal done so they can move on to other acquisitions, and Sony is using that to get concessions on the ABK deal, if not get it canceled. Great show. Thank you for that. And Gamer by Choice has gifted 1 Double Barrel Gaming membership. Thank you for that, brother. That's very kind of you and very generous. We also have Gamers Play HUD Zero, who's been a channel member for 13 months. Thank you for that. He says, hey, Boom and panel, I said it a decade ago. Sony's mafia-style tactics to undercut competition. They want Xbox to go the way of Sega. Regulators be damned. I can see what you're talking about there. And X Atticus drops a very generous $5 super chat. Welcome to the program, brother, and thank you for the generosity. He says, Sony, stop being a little B. Man up and take the 10-year. Take the 10 years and start making SOCOM to compete. And I agree there. Also, put some of your first party day one into your service, and that's also, I agree as well. But Boxenberger, what are your thoughts of this Elite-Ism that constantly is in the conversation? And again, take nothing away with God of War. It's a 10. People are quite enjoying it. I bought it. I bought the most expensive digital edition. I have yet to play it because there's just not enough time in the day. But what are your thoughts on these 4 particular games being in Game Pass and some people making an issue of it?
I don't see why it would be an issue. I feel sorry for them, honestly. If you limit yourself to only AAAs and the super shiny blockbusters, you're missing out on some of the greatest experiences. We've been saying this, Boom, for years, that indie devs have the luxury to be able to take risks in gaming, explore new gameplay elements, do something different than the mainstream games do. And that's the beauty. If you think about these big AAA blockbusters that costs hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to make, you don't take many risks in those games. You just don't, because you need to get your investments back. But those smaller developers, those 2-man games, those games with super small teams, they can take creative risks that others just can't. And if I look at the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years, some of the best and most unique experiences I have played came from indie games, not the big AAA games.
I agree.
Don't get me wrong. I know it's popular to shit on Ubisoft, but I love their games. I love Assassin's Creed and the Ubisoft formula. I truly do. I enjoy those. But those games have used the same formula for a reason, because it limits risks. But if I look at one of my favorite indie games, for instance, was What Remains of Edith Finch. I don't know if anyone.
Dude. Powerful story.
Incredible game. Yeah. If I look at a Hollow Knight, one of the best Metroidvanias ever made. If I look at these kind of games and experiences, they offer something a AAA game cannot offer, and that's the beauty of gaming. There's a mixture of everything out there. And if you limit yourself only to the big blockbusters, you're missing out on so many great games. Vampire Survivors, everyone's playing that game. Everyone's super addicted. That game looks like the graphics look like shit, but hey,
it's one guy.
Yeah, but dude, we have seen games from one guy that have significantly more graphics. But what did he do?
I think Ori was.
Let's Song of Iron, for instance. Yeah. Single man. Exactly. So come on. There doesn't matter. If you get scared of from that pixel graphics or simplistic graphics or whatever, I don't know what takes you off, you're missing out on so much fun. And yeah, Game Pass is. And I've always said that when people say, it's just, about indies and Game Pass doesn't offer real value, there are big AAA games in there. But the beauty is that you can try out those smaller games you wouldn't normally try. Would you ever have, be honest here, would you have bought a Vampire Survivor? You see 3 screenshots somewhere? No. I don't know.
No.
I wouldn't. No one.
I'll answer your question. For you. No. Yeah. No, exactly. I wouldn't have bought it. If it wasn't on Game Pass, I wouldn't have bought it. I did buy it, but
I wouldn't have even played it if Still Rain wasn't tweeting about it.
Yeah, honestly,
that's the thing.
Word of mouth goes a long way. Yeah,
exactly. That's what Game Pass is so the word of mouth, the viral effect, the Game Pass effect. People start playing those games. They talk about them on social media, and suddenly those games become a thing. That's a chance for the indies, and for us as gamers and as customers of Game Pass, we have the opportunity to try new things without taking a financial doing a financial investment, taking risks. What do you have to lose? A little bit of your time, and that's it. But you might discover one of your new addictions.
Indeed.
I've played so many amazing games. Earlier this year, Chorus came in Game Pass. I don't know if anyone played that.
I played it. Yes. Yeah.
Incredible. I would put it in my Game of the Year list if it came out this year. Honestly, I loved that game. I had such a blast, but for some reason, I didn't buy it when it came out last year. But that's the thing about Game Pass. It lets us try new things, and indie devs, again, smaller studios or even solo developers, they can take new risks. They can do stuff differently than the big AAA games, and isn't that a nice change of pace? So I don't get why people would dump on an indie game just because it's on Game Pass. I don't get that.
Yeah, me either. Umbra, you want to say something, Justin?
I was going to say one thing that and anybody can reply. One thing I've always wondered, and it's always bugged me, nobody can give me a good answer, and that Boxenberger touches on. Why are video games not more considered like art?
Hey, gaming is art and should be treated as such. Shout out to everyone side.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It is. It completely is. I mean, you have orchestras. You have the Final Fantasy Orchestra in Japan, and it takes everything that everybody else considers art, but for some reason, it's not considered art.
You know why? You know why, Sam? And I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to bring up this point because
I want you to.
It's a conversation that I just had recently with my own mom, right? So because I brought up that same point. Hey, because we were having that conversation. Oh, game is kind of pointless. And so I asked the conversation, hey, do you watch TV? Hey, do you listen to radio? Hey, do you do these things? And she was like, yeah, I do these. Okay, well, I kind of look at gaming that way. And then I said, hey, well, I also look at gaming as art. She was like, art? That's not art. I was like, how is it not art? People dedicate years of their lives to creating worlds, not just a painting, not just a graphic, not just whatever.
And they do, and sometimes they do include paintings, hand-drawn stuff.
I mean, 100%.
It's looked down as not being art because it's not something. because it's a toy. It's seen as childish. Still. But gaming, I think, has
there's still the nerd stigma, and
100%.
But we're all a bunch of grown-ass men sitting here talking about video games.
Yep.
Yeah, but gaming has evolved so much more past that thought.
It definitely has.
You look at I don't want to bring it up just because we're talking Xbox, but you look at something like a God of War and how mature that is as far as the theme of it, or and I can go on and on about even other games outside of that. I mean, you brought up Somerville just to lean back into the indie thing. Boom. I beat that the other day, by the way. I gave it a 6.5 out of 10 only because it was so quick. I beat it so fast. It's really short, but it is a nice game. You do get the understanding of the emotions of what's going on. You do get that, and you have multiple endings. But something like that, games like that, and it's another game that I remember playing that really brought me into turn-based strategy games, which was Mutant Year Zero. And I would not have touched a game like that had it not been on Game Pass. And now I actually like those types of games. So, yeah, the beauty of Game Pass, no matter what anybody will ever tell me, and why I'm so drawn to the Xbox, side of things when it comes to the ecosystem, is because it affords me the ability to try these games out without having to spend that extra money. I don't understand the shaming of, oh, you all don't buy this or that. If I have this in a service, I'm not buying it. So you're not going to make me feel bad about saving my money. It's never going to happen.
There's nothing wrong with saving money at all. Yeah.
My thing is, if you're going to have that conversation, then let's talk about Disney. Let's talk about Netflix. Let's talk about Hulu. Let's talk about everything else that you have a service to. That you're not buying things.
Everything consolidates.
Whenever you bring up the fact that them subbing to these other services, they lose their argument. Well, you start hearing them fumbling around their words. Well, I mean, but
The conversation then has to
Right.
turn into doesn't gaming kind of keep you in that ecosystem more than TV does?
It does,
Because of
you're
the
much more
time
engaged.
commitment?
Exactly. And
Yep.
and it's like you say, games like Somerville. I mean, we can go on to Nobody Saves the World, which I enjoyed. I didn't finish that, but I have to get back into that. It's so like the overabundance when they say that Xbox
Mhm.
has no games. Surely they're obviously trying to point out AAA first
Yeah,
party. I
of
get it.
course. Yeah,
We get it, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But the Xbox clearly has games. I'm so far behind because of the games that's offered
Yes.
through Game Pass. It's not even funny.
My backlog is so ridiculous right now,
Mhm.
folks. Listen, like I said, I forget the fact that I do 5 shows a week that I stream. I'm a
Shout out to
full-time
you, Bo.
streamer, Monday to Friday, right? Forget that.
Yeah.
I'm also retired, and I don't have the time to keep up with the ridiculous amount of games that I buy
Yeah.
and also play an Xbox Game Pass. It's a great problem to have, and it's why that and again, I don't get $1 from Microsoft every time I say Game Pass. I wish I did, because then I would be able to have, we would have been moved into our new home already, instead of me having to keep saving for it. But listen, I do want to bring Umber into the conversation, get your opinion on this Elite-Ism. We'll get Steel Rain's opinion, and then we will get everyone out of here. Umbra, why does this Elite-Ism continue? Is it because Sony does put out, bangers, like the kids say, like God of War, and Microsoft currently, again, folks, you got to remember, currently they don't have a game like God of War right now, but that is going to change in 2023. What are your thoughts on this, man?
Yeah, it's a mixture of that. It's a mixture of Sony fanboys feeling like they have that one up over us as far as it goes with the Xbox side of things. So they kind of come together and do that. It's a bit of tribalism, obviously, too.
Oh yeah, of course.
And it's always going to come down to that. I don't care if Microsoft wants to start hitting the way they are going to hit. They're going to find some new way to move the goalposts. It's just going to happen no matter what. We've seen them do it time and time again. So typically I don't concern myself with them anymore, but that's what a divide comes at. And it's unfortunate, man, because I've talked with people like that. And you see me, I post on Twitter. I played the God of Wars. I got a PS5. I prefer Xbox. That's the thing. And after I finished God of War, I just looked at the PS5 and discussed, like, I won't be touching you in a while. And it's nothing against PlayStation. It's just the fact that they have nothing else that I want to touch from them. And I've played everything else. I use them specifically as an exclusive machine. That's it. Xbox has everything else I need and want. And it's people on the PlayStation side that look at Xbox the same way I'm looking at PlayStation. And that's just what it is. But the problem is, though, is that they won't give Xbox the chance that I will give PlayStation. And that's where the problem arises. And it's sad to me because of that. And I've talked with these people who are otherwise decent people. But if you see them in their tweets and things like that on Twitter or whatever it may be, you get a really negative picture of their character. And it's unfortunate, and it's really sad because, like I said, there's so many games that people miss out on that Game Pass brings forward, that it's sad that so many people miss out on it because of their fealty to PlayStation or maybe even Nintendo. You don't really see Nintendo fanboys doing it as much as Sony fanboys, but you see a lot of PlayStation fanboys who write off Game Pass as, Game Pass fodder games, things of that nature or whatever. They'll write it off. And then I've seen some, and this is where it's like it's so entrenched into them to write off Xbox and Game Pass, because a lot of those games that have come to Game Pass, they've written off. I've seen them write off, and the exact same people, when it finally did go over to PlayStation, were talking about, oh man, this game is great, such and such and so on and so forth. It's like, yeah, it was great, 6 months ago too when it was on Xbox, but you didn't want to play
Persona effect.
Yeah. The Persona effect. Him. Yeah, and Persona itself too. Yeah, and I don't know if you all know about Persona, but the thing is, it's funny about that, and it's unfortunate, and the biggest problem is tribalism at the end of the day, and that's why we never will really have that equal footing, and that elitism will always continue, because honestly, I think once those games start, the bangers, as they like to say, start dropping like they're going to drop next year, they're still going to find a way to complain. It's just never ending.
Yep. No, I mean that's a great, honest and true points. Steel Rain, let's get your final opinion, and then we'll get everyone H out of here. You know, the word gaming tribalism. We've heard Phil Spencer talk about that. He dislikes that terribly, and I agree with him. I do not like the tribalism. I understand rooting for your team. I understand.
Yeah.
Being a fan of X genre for X reason. There's nothing wrong with that. Being a fan is why we come back to the different mediums that
Right.
we appreciate, whether
Mhm.
that be music, sports, automotive, gaming, it doesn't matter. You are allowed to be a fan.
Mhm.
It's when you see the disingenuousness that you talk about. You talk about that on a regular basis
Yeah.
on Living Split Screen, where this tribalism does come into the conversation of AAA, you know, quote unquote banger, as the kids
Mhm.
say, versus something like the 4 games we talked about. And I think that it should be known that you can have just as much fun in God of War Ragnarok as well as Somerville or or Return to Monkey Island or the 8-bit one-man made game that has taken over gaming in the last 2 or 3 weeks in Vampire Survivors.
Yeah, I mean, again, I see some people bringing that point up in the chat. Tribalism is in everything. Everybody has a little bit of tribalism to them. But there at some point when you become such an enthusiast, because I don't like really using the term hardcore. I mean, this isn't the it's not that industry. So so for a better way, as an enthusiast, when you break it down to that, at a certain point, when do you kind of remove yourself out of, or when you start having the conversations, when do you take your personal beliefs kind of out of it and then start taking that RTS approach, especially when it's something that you genuinely care for, right? Now, if you only care about your specific box, like for an example, a lot of people, hey, I only care about PlayStation. PlayStation is the greatest thing I've ever played. I've had a PlayStation since I was 2 years old. I only know their games. I only will ever play their games, and that's all I believe in. Great. I feel you. There are people that are Steelers fans that are exactly like that. There's people that are Buffalo Bills fans that are exactly like that. Or whatever team that or whatever you want to throw in that conversation. To me, and that's why I always speak on it. For me, it's if we were only going to talk about what I care about, we would have a very short conversation because I'm not easily swayed. But I am open to listening to different people's opinions, getting different people's perception on things, and just kind of listening to what everybody has to think or what everybody's thinking and what they have to say, because it's important to the industry, right? Maybe you're going to introduce me to something that I wasn't thinking about. And that's the important piece of conversation, period, that we as humans miss all the time. We're more so looking at something to jump on rather than looking for something to understand, right? We're always playing the defense. Oh, I need to play defense because you've just hurt my feelings by telling me my God of War isn't that great. For an example, I've had people tell me, hey, why do you care about what other gamers care about? Because that's why I'm in the community. Right? That's why I've talked to people. That's why I'm here with Boom, because I care about the overall industry. We can talk about me wanting to play multiplayer games and how I think single player games are completely pointless and they have no, they don't keep people committed into the gaming industry, and I don't think they're worth the money that gets spent on them. But is that fair for me to say? No, because millions of people enjoy that experience. 15 million people played Elden Ring. Sure, that's a multi-platform game, but that's more people in that short amount of time period than have ever played that style of game before. Isn't that the point? More people are playing God of War than they did 2018, playing Ragnarok than they did 2018. Isn't that the point? I just, for me personally, sure, have bias or sure have your preferences, but be honest that these are your preferences. If you're just doing it to troll, just be honest. I'm just trolling. And there's a lot of people out here who fall for the troll. So it's like you can't, on one side, you can't help everybody, but on the other side, you have to be able to help yourself. And to me, how I help myself is taking that RTS approach. pulling myself out of the world, looking at the darker crevices, everybody having conversation. We all, pulling our resources together so we can build up our own foundation. Because at the end of the day, the more conversations that we can have, the more opening discussions that we can have, the better that this industry is going to be. Because gaming, more so than any other industry currently, as the consumer, we have the most decision making in this industry. And as we continue to have conversation, it is going to continue to work in our favor. So tribalism is always going to be a thing, but ladies and gentlemen, you just got to find what's right for you, right?
I love it. Listen, what a way to close out the show, folks. Obviously, this is one of my favorite shows to do each week because I'm an Xbox fan. We have incredible personalities that are a part of the show each and every week. And obviously, it's not just about stopping here and supporting Double Barrel Gaming. It is about getting out and supporting Justin and Boxenberger and Infinite Umber and Steel Rain and their shows. And getting over and subbing. They are a part of this panel because A, I love them like brothers, and B, they are stout members of this gaming community. They bring incredible insight and big opinions to every conversation they have. And I do want to say that as Double Barrel Gaming marches towards 12K, there are other smaller shows that haven't gotten there yet. And of course, if it's a choice of me getting success or them, I'd rather see them get the success before me because I can't complain about what has happened with the channel. My wife and I are incredibly grateful and thankful, for that matter, for the support. So at the end of the show, if you're not subscribed to Justin Sayin, Boxenberger, Infinite Umber, and of course Steel Rain, please, on my recommendation alone, get over there, hit their link. 2 clicks. Click, get to their YouTube channel, and subscribe. Super easy. Hit the bell icon if you want to be even more generous. 3 clicks, you're in, you're good. And I guarantee you that you're going to add some great content to your weekly listening, whether that be in the gym, doing the wash, or like me, mopping the house when I listen to Steel Rain and Pong Soul on a regular basis. They help me get through those long periods of, damn, I got a 3-hour cleaning event, and I'm going to listen to their show. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for the incredible super chats. Let me make sure I didn't miss any that have come in. Iman Burns, who's been a channel member for 10 months. Iman, thank you so much for that. He says Sony doesn't want the deal to go through because Sony doesn't want to compete with Game Pass Ultimate. You pay $70 plus. Yep. When it's on Game Pass, it's £11 per month. Sony does not like change. Absolutely the truth. But Steel Rain, let's talk about Living Split Screen. Where could people tune in this Saturday to check you and Pong Soul out at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Times? And more importantly, where could people reach out to you and strike up a conversation on social media?
Well, Boom, again, I do want to thank you for just sending that signal out, and I'm glad I was able to get on here, man. Another passionate conversation from everybody on the panel today. Even jumping in, on the back and just rushing through the back door. I still feel like it was an amazing conversation to be had. But I make it real easy for everybody, man. So Steel Rain, the T is a 7 everywhere. If you want to type in Google to make it easier for you, do it. It will work. I've tried it. Had my old lady try it. Had my whole family try it. It's guaranteed to work. So you can just find me there. I frequent in the streets of Twitter mostly. And I don't think Twitter's going to die anytime soon. And even if it does, we'll have that conversation when we need to have it. Seems like many people have found kind of something similar, but that's another conversation to be had. Other than that, you can find me on Xbox, PC, PlayStation, whenever they give me a reason to get one. And other than that, guys, if you want to get some gaming in, chop it up with me, hit me in the DM. I'm not somebody that's going to hide from you and act like I didn't see your messages. So I'll always respond. But with that being said, Boom, again, I want to thank you again. I'll continue to say this. I say it behind the scenes. I'll say it live. You're one of the pillars of the community. Continue to be that. Continue to do you, as you've always stated you will do. And I will always continue to support you 150% because I do believe in what you stand for. And the rest of the gentlemen on the panel also. You guys have been nothing short but spectacular throughout our community. Every time that I see you guys post something, I try to retweet, like, share it out because
thank you, sir.
The more we can support each other, the better off I think we will end up being. And I think the quicker we realize that, the further off we'll end up being ahead of the game. But with that being said, check me out every Saturday, 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. UK time, live a split screen, non-console centric platform, talking about everything in the gaming industry. And we take that RTS approach, like I mentioned earlier.
Well, appreciate you being here, brother. And of course, the kind words are always appreciated. Thank you so much. Infinite Umbra, brother, sell your brand. You know, you're working on the back end to start your own channel, to start your own show. But not only are you on this podcast, you're on the Xbox Infinite podcast, which again, the court litigations are costing more and more each and every week we pass. I wish he would just relinquish the 25% rights that you're asking.
He's being stubborn. He's being stubborn.
Well, he is a kind of a stubborn dude, so that's what we love about him. Brother, talk about it. Talk about the Xbox Infinite podcast. You got a great crew over there. Each and every Friday evening. And where can people reach out to you on social media?
So you guys can find me on Twitter, on the Twitters as long as they survive, I suppose. Not sure how long that'll be, but
go check out Hive. Boom has started his account last night, and just in case as a backup plan.
Get you a just in case, get a Hive account. I mean, I got a bunch of people following me now. I'm close to 200 followers already over there. I'm feeling like a Pokemon trainer or something.
Do you know that Aaron Greenberg followed me on Hive? I'm very proud of that.
He follows me on both Hive and Twitter.
Yeah, me too.
So
on both. Yeah.
There we go. I was ready to rub it in your face for a second, but I wanted to say, Boom, just to add on to what Steele brought up and said. Thank you, brother, for reaching out like you do and extending that hand to us. Like I said, I was in the chat too all that time before watching you for so long, and you reached out and said, hey, you want to come up here? And I thought maybe you were just like blowing hot air, like, we'll bring you up.
No, it's all about paying it forward, brother. And that's what it's about. And I appreciate the very kind words. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I know you did the same for like Justin, for instance, but, and we definitely appreciate you. And you all were great today. Of course, Steele, thank you for coming through, brother. And like I said, you give me the energy, you come in and
always bringing that passion still.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. You can wake me up a bit because I'm tired in the morning time. I get off.
I understand it.
Yeah.
I know.
And apologies, by the way, to you guys and to the chat for being a little behind.
Oh, stop it. It's all right.
Yeah, because that late shift is what did it. But and of course, like I said, you guys can find me on the Twitters as under Infinite Umbra or Umbra Infinite. You'll find me either way. And the same on Hive, just to say. And of course, on Fridays, 8 o'clock Eastern, or excuse me, now 7 o'clock Eastern now because of the time shift. You can find me on the Xbox Infinite podcast. And just to say, in case I don't see you guys or hear from you before then, happy Thanksgiving and happy holidays to you all.
Yes, thank you very much for thank you. I appreciate that. You too. Hopefully you have a plentiful Thanksgiving with you and your family.
Yes, sir. Well. I'm making a turkey again this year.
Nice.
Hey,
Mrs. Boom actually seasoned the turkey yesterday. It's marinating as we speak.
Nice.
And I'll take some pictures, folks. Trust me, her cooking's ridiculous. She puts her foot in it. And anyone that's a cook knows exactly what I'm talking about. That's some old school cook talk right there. Putting their foot into it. But Boxenberger, sell your brand, brother. You got obviously your weekly show. You just did you have a review coming up of the Evil West. Good on you, by the way. Evil West is dope. I am quite enjoying that. Talk about it, your YouTube channel, and where can people reach out to you on social media?
First of all, I don't know how to follow all that praise because Boom, the panel is right. You are a core pillar of that community. I think you introduced so many podcasters, including myself, to the to the thing. Like many years ago now, but we've been doing this for a while together, and so I'm glad I was able to join here again today after taking a 4-week break. But and like you said, if people don't follow me, Boxenberger everywhere. Also on Hive now, by the way. The Hive is becoming a thing.
It's actually quite good, to be honest with you. Hive is, it's quite good. It's a little slow in its loading. That's my only issue. But
there's only 2 people working on it, right?
Yeah,
2 people.
Yeah.
Wow. 2 people do that. That's great. That is crazy. Aaron Greenberg isn't following me over there. He's following me on Twitter, but not on Hive yet. But we'll get there. And like you said, yesterday my review for Evil West went up. I was lucky enough to get a review code up front. And if you want to find out if the game is for you. You can check that review out. I always do my reviews very carefully so that I won't spoil anything. I pick the footage I show very carefully so you won't get any surprise spoilers or anything that will ruin your playthrough. So definitely check that out. And other than that, on Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. UK time, or 8 p.m. Central Europe, we have our weekly podcast, The World of Gaming, that I host along with Wandering Dutch. And we always have special guests, and we're going to have a couple of surprises coming over the next weeks. That's going to be really exciting. So,
excellent.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you so much for being here. And of course, it is my absolute pleasure to bring up new voices. I think it's incredibly important to pay it forward. I was brought into this industry by Mooch. Mooch asked me to. I asked Mooch if I could guest on his show, Crossfire, and after the second appearance, I was asked to be a regular panel member, and I spent 2 years there. Now, granted, me and Mooch, we don't always agree on some of our hot take opinions, but Mooch is a good dude, and I will always be grateful for getting my break into podcasting. And I promised myself that if the channel were ever to be successful, that I would pay that forward by bringing in new voices. And it's something that Mrs. Boomstick and I strive to do, because everybody's voice is important. I don't care whether you have 1 sub or 100,000 subs. If you have an opinion and you want to talk about it on any of my shows, DM me, and we can get it done. As long as you stay straight and you don't bring console war and cursing and nastiness into the conversation, you're welcome to join and guest appear. But listen, speaking of bringing a new voice into the conversation, Justin saying you did it as that you've done before. You've killed it with your big opinions and your stout, gaming knowledge. Where could people reach out to you on social media? But more importantly, reach out to you and subscribe to your YouTube channel.
Yep, it's Just Insane here on YouTube. Just Insane 85, capital J, capital S everywhere. On Twitter, I will not be on Mastodon because as a grown man, I refuse to toot at somebody.
Yeah, it's not. Mastodon is not good. I tried it. I deleted my account. It's awful.
I just can't see that as a grown up. Yeah, go ahead and toot me. Yeah.
Toot toot.
Exactly. But oh god, that'd be annoying on your phone. But yeah, you can find me there. And same thing on Xbox Live. Hit me up. I've been playing a lot of DMZ, and it's hard out there on those streets without a good team, man. Same thing, Just Insane. Hit me up if you're having a problem, if you just want to talk, anything. I kind of get my fulfillment out of helping other people. So if you need to talk about anything, if you're a member of our community, even if you're not a member of our community, just coming across this show and you're having a life problem, I'm on normally after my family goes to sleep every night. Jump on, we'll just shoot the shit. If you need to talk about something, I'm here. And I know most of these panel members are the same way. Take me up on it, man. I've talked to, Sith and Goblin about their problems on Twitter. And we don't need to go through this shit alone. Hit me up if you need it.
I love it. I love the message. And at this time of year, especially, folks, if you're feeling alone, if you're feeling down, there are places to reach out and get help. It's a matter of picking up the phone and dialing any of your crisis centers. But more importantly, if you feel more comfortable speaking to a gamer that you follow, reach out to them on DM. And you'll be surprised how quickly many of us will answer the call. It's super important. A lot of us come from service backgrounds, and we want to continue that service in real life. And if you're having trouble, don't hesitate. Think about your family before you do something drastic. And of course, reach out to any of us. And we'll be more than happy to, quote unquote, talk you off the ledge if need be. There is help here. You are not alone. Yeah, and especially during these times.
It doesn't make you weak or anything. No, I've had those problems when I was getting out of the military. There was a point where I was suicidal and I needed help. And my best friend actually called the cops on me. Yeah. And it was the best thing he could have done.
Brother. Yeah.
So, reach out. Really, yeah, there's. I don't need to be seen on my Twitter feed that somebody else died that could have just could have reached out. Just do it.
I absolutely agree. I think that's super important, and thank you for that message. But ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it for this week's new episode of the Xbox Factor Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. BoomStick XL. This is Double Barrel Gaming, and of course, we still have 2 shows left. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be sitting down with Luke Steele and Hargeet Chani on the new episode of Primetime Gaming, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mrs. Boom and I are going to be taking Thanksgiving off, and then we'll be back again Friday morning for a very special and packed panel of opinions for the new episode of Breakfast with Boom. That is 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Of course, you guys and gals will hear from me through the socials. Mrs. Boomstick and I always wish everyone happy holidays, but I'll say it live on the air. Mrs. Boomstick and I hope that your table and cupboards are plentiful, that your homes are filled with laughter, and we hope that you have a very, very happy Thanksgiving. Thanks again for the super chats that have come in. Those allow the big giveaways, and we do got a big one coming up, which I will not reiterate. We'll talk as we get closer to the 3rd week of December. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close out today's show with something that's important to me. Hopefully one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids, and he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated, and also it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone, and we'll see you next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Factor Podcast.